Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with Nate Payo, the show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today is something new for me. I have two guests on the show, and I've never had that happen before. So welcome to the show, Fran Bontempo and Kristin Smedley. Hello. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Both of us.
So you guys are on a total domination world tour for your new Brilliantly Resilient program. Let's back up a little bit. How did you two meet?
Oh, it was a blessed day when I walked into Mary Fran's life. I don't
really
walk
a matter of opinion
lives.
On that.
I don't walk into people's lives. I kind of blow the front door off their house and say hello.
Yeah, she came with her hair flying in a few years ago. A friend of ours, a mutual friend, was putting together a mastermind of several people who were trying to build businesses. And for some reason thought that Kristin and I would be a good match in this endeavor. And it actually turns out she was right. Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah. It's
So
funny
we met
for the people that can't see us. I mean, I'm in a baseball hat and very long, very dark hair. Mary Fran her hair is about as short as I could ever imagine hair being, blonde. Yep. Like we are just so opposite, but it worked.
Ayo, you didn't mention the part that you love to say all the time, and that's how I'm so much older than you.
I was being nice. It's so good. And this is a new friend. We haven't broken Nathan yet.
Right.
He's into it. But it's funny you say that. Like a lot of times, when we're connecting or networking with people, it's not so much like who we individually act with, but like who in your network you can make a really amazing connection between. So that person you probably didn't realize it was like actually like, hey, you two are two extreme forces that put you together, and you guys will be better off together than you were individually. And they see that and they make that connection. So I think that's a cool thing about meeting people and making connections.
Yeah, we and I think it's very often the people that you don't think you would be a great fit with for all the obvious reasons. Like Kristin said, you look at us, we just couldn't be more different. And yet this other person who knew both of us and knew both of our stories individually knew that there were a lot of things in common there underneath the surface that maybe you don't see right away. And Kristin and I are huge proponents of building a tribe. So, we kind of both jumped right into it just because we've both had such horrific life experiences that all barriers to anything pretty much are down now. And we go, okay, well, let's try that. And it worked out to be a great fit. So to your point, yes, you should definitely be seeking out people who might not be exactly like you because they bring something new to the conversation.
So that kind of leads to my next question. So brilliantly resilient. I mean, you talked a little bit about overcoming some hardships and turning that into a strength or a way to move forward. And I think that's what resilient means is overcoming adversity. So what kind of brought this idea of brilliantly resilient, and I'm like, what is it? What should people expect from it? And what are the stories that you're looking to share?
Well, I know that, when Mary Fran and I got together in that mastermind, and then we were in a small group doing a podcast and helping people build businesses, one of the things that we found to have in common was that people kept saying to the two of us, oh my God, when they would know our stories, you've had such stuff happen in your lives. Why are you guys laughing and smiling and having a good time? Like, people think that when they hear our stories, that like the world would give us a pass to be able to just be broken and bitter, right? Mm-hmm. And instead, we have figured out what we teach people now, to reset, rise, and then uncovered brilliance that we had, these gifts and talents, and use them to do some really cool things. I mean, I have 2 blind kids, and that was my big sucker punch in my life 20 years ago. But through a lot of my journey and a lot of years and learning things, I ended up building the patient organization that's global for them, and have built. We've written books, Mary Fran and I, and we both are speakers. And Mary Fran has her own journey with her business. We just uncovered some talents that we got very successful in our stuff, and now we want to turn around and show people how to do that.
And how do you do that?
Well, Mary Fran, go ahead. Tell everybody how to do it. Everybody get a pen, and Mary Fran's going to change your life right now.
I'm going to tell you how to solve all your problems right now. Right now. So, well, first of all, you have to understand that the way Kristin works and the way I work generally are pretty different. You know, I want everything planned out a year ahead of time. So right before Christmas.
Where's the part where you guys have similarities?
No, there are none.
None.
We're both very funny. That's about it.
There are no similarities.
There's none. Like our lives. I mean, she's been married for 752 years, and I'm divorced. She has no kids in her house, and I have 952 children and dogs. Like, there's no similarities. No, I'm just kidding.
None.
Go ahead.
None.
I think your friend made a mistake. She probably thought.
We've told her that so many times.
If there's anything that's going to happen, it's just a lot of banter, a lot of discussion, like a lot of time wasting. But you'll probably have a good time. You might not get anything accomplished. But
we always have a good time.
But the funny thing is like usually when you have this like amazing connection, amazing like friendship with somebody, it doesn't feel like work. It like feels like you're just having like a ton of fun, a ton of good time. And then like you look back on it like 3 or 5 years, you're like, man, that was like one of the most productive experiences I had. It really took me a lot of places, even though it felt like we were just goofing off and we didn't take things too seriously.
No, Nate, we're looking the past 5 weeks is like 3 years worth of work. It's insane
so funny
what we've produced.
We literally were just talking about that yesterday, about how, so I'll give you the condensed version of this. So right before Christmas, Kristin said, you know what, we should put on a program. Basically what happened was we realized that we were trying to share both of our journeys and the stuff that came out of it. My son is in recovery from heroin addiction and alcohol. And it was about at least 10 to 12 years that we dealt with all of that. And I'm currently working and writing, working with the company that he works for and writing posts and things from the family perspective. But anyway, so right before Christmas, Kristin said, you know, we both decided we should do something together because we had such similarities just in terms of what she calls sucker punches, what I call train wrecks. And how we just, at some point, both of us made a decision, of course, after we shook our fists at God and screamed and yelled and everything else, we both made a very conscious decision that those things were not going to define us, at least not in a negative way. So that we were going to take whatever that hand was that we were dealt and figure out how to do the best for our kids, do the best for our families, and then take those skills and turn them into something else. So Kristin says right before Christmas, we should have an event. So we came up with this name, Brilliantly Resilient. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll start planning it now for, next year. And she's like, no, we're going to do it right after January. And I'm like, oh my God. So somehow we pull this whole thing together, this Brilliantly Resilient event with the, as she's mentioned before, with the lead through being showing people how to reset after their sucker punch, rise, looking at their values, their perspective, just what they want their life to be, and then reveal their brilliance by taking skills that they either learned in the journey or skills that they already had and were able to repurpose and use them in a different way moving forward, because none of this was part of our plan. So somehow or another, we pulled off this amazing event March 7th, and then the world shut down. And since then, we've, in the last 5 weeks, we started an online show. We turned it into a podcast. We're starting to work on a book. We're putting out a journal. We're putting together a course. It's been complete and utter madness, but we both feel driven to do it.
It's amazing. And like, how do you find time between, getting that all going. That's a lot to get going.
A lot of stuff.
Tons of
well, luckily we can't go anywhere right now, Nate. We are stuck at home and working 27 hours a day on this. And it, you know what, we joke about it that we're working all the time. And we turned our, what was supposed to be a show we were professionally producing over the summer, we just decided to turn our laptops on and be not glamorous and just interview people every single day to help people get through this. And honestly, if we didn't have that show and we didn't have all this work that we were working on, I don't know where I would be, because there was so much in the beginning of this pandemic shutdown that it was wreaking havoc in a lot of parts of my life. And if I didn't have somebody every day giving me a new tool through the Brilliantly Resilient show, I honestly don't think that I'd be, it would have broken me in a few different departments.
Yeah, I think for me, that's been something that I've watched people that had, I was fortunate enough that I could work from home in my regular job, but there's other people that like were completely, hey, you got nothing to do for 5 weeks. You can't go to your business. You can't do anything like that. And some people got online and started doing videos and Zoom stuff and kind of playing with it. And other people, didn't. And and the people I think that did something, whether it was just getting started or thinking of ideas or stuff like that, they're going to be in a place where they're going to, I think, recover from the pandemic a little quicker. They're going to have opportunities present themselves that haven't happened. And the people that kind of like didn't do as much are going to look back and expect life to go back to normal. And it's not going to go exactly back to normal. And maybe their business won't be quite the same. And they're going to look back, go, oh, I wish I'd used that time more productively to do some things, because other people did. And I could have been where they're at. And I chose to, kind of wallow in my misery a little bit and hope for the best. So that's
who can blame anybody for doing that? But, to your point and what you talk about, one of the other things that Kristin and I made it a point to do was to expand our tribe and to just reach out even to people that we didn't know, like people that we had no relationship with prior to, saying, hey, we're putting on this show and we think you're amazing and we would love to have you on it. And we've had such a positive response, which just is one of those things that I think is probably a through line for you. Like, just get out there and talk to people and reach out to people. And you would be amazed at how responsive people are to building a network. And we're like right in the middle of that.
Yeah, I definitely, since I started my podcast, which it's relatively new as well. It was kind of something I created as a tool, because my idea was like, hey, whenever I've like built my network, or like you called a tribe of people, like I've seen a lot of success, and it's never been like overnight. It's been like over time, like all of a sudden these connections you make, I refer to it also as like your toolbox. Your toolbox gets bigger. You have more tools to call from, and you're really, if you're solving problems and you have more resources to solve problems from, somebody says, hey, I need something done, like I know who to talk to get that resolved. The more tools you have, the better you are at solving problems, the more you can get done. So if you start building this network, you start expanding it. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So I said to myself, hey, why not just kind of, instead of it being localized to like the industry I'm in, let me just expand it like to anybody. Just kind of like this idea of like, hey, if I meet a lot of people, I'm going to meet some really cool people. They're going to introduce me to some other cool people. This journey is going to go in a weird direction. Don't know where it's going to go, but you're going to meet amazing friends, and opportunities are going to come up that you never thought possible. You're going to get exposed to ideas you never thought possible. So I'm just going to kind of meet and accept invitations to meet as many people as I can and just kind of see where it goes. And I was like, hey, why don't I do a podcast? I can kind of cast a bigger net. And in addition to me always kind of reaching out to meet people, like now people would come to me. So then you start podcasting and you have podcasts, and now all of a sudden you like get on other people's shows and they're introducing you to other people. And like you're going down this path, and all of a sudden you're just like, what starts off as like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. Like, how am I going to find any guests? It's like, the problem isn't finding guests. Like you get like a lot of people just wanting to converse and network. And I think I got nervous too about it. Like right when you're about to record, you're like, what am I going to say to these people? Like I didn't really write out a list of amazing questions to ask people. It's just like, but that's not really what it's about. It's really just kind of getting to know them as a person, find out what they're up to, who they're at, what their story is, and just have a conversation, a real conversation, and kind of document what it's like just to meet somebody and see where it goes. So that's been kind of my journey with it. And I think
that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. And one of the things that's a line that we constantly reinforce whenever we speak to people and we talk about this is do not be married to outcomes. Mm-hmm. Like be willing to take the step in the journey and have a plan. You want to kind of have an idea where you want to go because you need some structure to it, but be open to whatever that evolution is, because 9 times out, I mean, think about it. How many times have your plans gone exactly according to plan? Like never. Never.
What's that about?
Yeah. So when you release yourself from being married to that specific outcome, there's all sorts of amazing things that can happen. And Kristin and I, we had to release outcomes decades ago. Like that was, we just had to let go of that. But that's an example of one of the skills and the tools that we have talked to people about that we've carried through. That ability to let things evolve and be open to making a left turn when you thought you were going to make a right turn.
Yeah, I love that journey of being open to where it goes, because sometimes like the answer is right there beside us. It's always been, but you have to experience different things in life to like realize it's right there. You're not ready for that message to have to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Who knew one of my answers was like 5 miles away? And Kristin, who knew? Like, God help me.
That's pretty amazing. Like you go through those for life for so long, so close, and then
I know, isn't that wild?
It's like
I don't think it's 5 miles. I think it's less than that. I think it's maybe 2 miles. It's probably 2 miles.
Would you like me to go map it out and drive by and honk?
No, please do not. No. Don't run here. Don't drive here. I need the 2 mile. Whatever it is, I need the distance.
That's our other thing. I am up at 5 o'clock in the morning, coffee in hand, ready to go. And I have to wait until at least 8 o'clock to text her and have her phone start binging with all my ideas.
Whereabouts are y'all?
At the time, and my phone's going bing, bing, bing. And I'm thinking, what the heck does she want from me this early?
We're just outside of Philly.
Okay, that's right. I did know that. Yeah. So I'm like early too, like it's like 5 a.m. getting up. So you've probably been ready to rock and roll for a bit. So the brilliant resilient, like it makes sense to me, this idea of like, hey, you have a really big hardship that you're overcoming, and it's learning to take that pain into a gift and figure out how to overcome it and use it to a positive path for you. But what about somebody that says like, hey, I don't have a sucker punch. I don't have a defining like nothing like really, really bad's happened to me. Like that I don't identify, that it's just been kind of like, sure, I've had some bad days, but I haven't, my life hasn't been turned upside down in this like way that comparatively to your two stories. Like, how would you talk to them about finding their voice?
So, first of all, thank you for bringing that up, because we do talk about that.
Same thing. We do.
Honestly, people, we didn't rehearse this ahead of time, but Nate's hitting every single point that we talk about. That is one of the things that we want to say to people. You don't have to have a sucker punch to either be able to or want to reset and tweak your life a little bit. And one of the things that's important to us is that a lot of the skills and talents that people have are things that come naturally to them. And because they come naturally to them, we don't often see it. We don't often name it, because we have this weird thing in this country where in order for something to be valuable, it has to be hard. No, it doesn't. The gifts and the things that you're really good at are the things that come naturally to you. And I don't think that we often use them to their full potential because they come easily to us. And it's just, that's just something that I do. So the other idea of being brilliantly resilient is take a look at your life. Thank God you don't have any hardships, first of all, any major ones. Thank God. Mm-hmm. But take a look at your life and see if you're living in a meaningful way for you. See if what you're doing is really giving meaning to you. And if you feel like, a lot of the people we talk to say they kept feeling a little tug like something just wasn't quite fitting. I think a lot of people feel like that. So before you think about you have to make this major change, just take a look at where you're at and what skill set you have. What do people come to you for? What is this thing that everybody says, oh, she's the person or he's the guy for XYZ? And how can you take that? And maybe you're not going to make a big career change. Maybe, that's not the thing. But how can you take that thing that you're really good at and enhance your life with the meaning of these natural skills that you have? So it doesn't have to be a big reset because of a problem. It can be a reset just in terms of, hey, I need something more in my life. Something's calling me. And how do I answer that question?
Mm-hmm. Now, another thing that we do is we talk to, my thing, what started to emerge with Mary Fran and I when we were putting this live event together was all of a sudden we were like, man, I wish that when I was a teenager in high school and in college, I wish I would have been building and naming my resilience skills all along my journey, because I know that when I was 28 years old and heard your son is blind, I would have handled it a heck of a lot differently instead of literally crashing to the floor and crying for 3 years. So we started thinking, wow, we really got to get this in the hands of young people, which we did. We went to a teen summit and we're doing some work there. And then look what happened. The whole world gets shut down and these kids, the seniors don't have graduation. They don't have, last night we did senior night for lacrosse for my daughter's high school team and had to do a parade of cars. Like so many of their dreams are crushed and a lot of them don't have the tools. I mean, everyone has resilience built in. We need them to name the tools and know what they are and uncover them. So we've been, now we're switching gears to, not switching gears, but adding that additional path of getting these tools and this information to young folks so that they build, like you said, a toolbox that they can come to in different things. And one more thing I'd say about for the folks that haven't had the massive issue or any little sucker punches along the way and they're coasting along doing okay. One thing I learned from my oldest blind son, when we talk about building a network and a tribe and a team, I've always said that to my kids. And I think it's because, when you have two blind kids, when you have an adversity like blindness, you have to rely on a team of teachers, a team of specialists, all of that. So we've always built teams. And my son actually accomplished a dream that I had let go of when I heard your son is blind. He was valedictorian of his high school senior class. Mm-hmm. When he gave his speech, he talked about building a team, having a network, relying on people, asking for help. But then he said, but life is not a one-way street. And you should have your head up and looking for other teams to be on. And I think it's important for people to realize in your times of not struggle, when you are succeeding and you're doing just fine, who can you be a resource for with your brilliance to help their team?
Yeah, that's a message I resonate really well with, because there's a teacher I had in junior high, and he told me, and this always stuck with me, is like, hey, if I tell you to do something, you're going to learn about 25% of it. If I show you how to do it, you're going to learn about 50% of it. And I'm probably getting these percentages wrong. And if you do it yourself, you're going to learn about 75% of it. But if you show somebody else to do it, you're going to learn 100% of that. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that as they're going through life and they're building a team, they're getting knowledge and stuff like this. They're like, okay, I'm learning. But they have a message to share. They have knowledge that they can impart to others. And when they reach back and help others by either joining another team, they're bringing their gifts and their value to another group of people to lift them up. They're going to add to the parts, make it all lift up. But at the same time, they're going to learn more about themselves and more about their gifts by doing that, by offering. So I think that's a really cool, very insightful thing that your son came up with to talk about, and it's a pretty inspiring message.
Yeah.
So.
I was ugly crying in that auditorium. He wouldn't tell me the speech ahead of time. I'm like, Michael, I am a professional speaker. I would like to review this. And he's like, nope. And then I was trying to film him, and my daughter she's always rolling her eyes at me. She's almost he took the camera, like the video. She's like, I'll do it, because I'm like shaking trying to film him, and he's a good guy.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of let's put it this way too. Nobody gets through life without at least bumps in the road. Mm-hmm. So yay, if you're not having anything right now, thank God, but something's happening at some point, Mm-hmm. So find your team, find your people, and see what you can bring to the game. Like mm-hmm. You have these skills and somebody needs help. And when you start to build that prior to any kind of struggles, those networks remain in place so that when something does happen or when somebody else needs something, you rise. And when we're together, we all rise together. So, either get on a team or find people to add to your team, because then the boat rises together.
Yes, for sure. And that kind of brings me back to one of the things you talked earlier about when people don't necessarily know what their sucker punch moment is, because as we're living our lives, we're exposed to it every day. It doesn't always like jump right out of us that mm-hmm. we're interesting. Like when I hear your stories, I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting story, or somebody else's story. It always sounds interesting because you're told it in this way that's like, you don't know everything that they went through and the ups and downs of their lives and some of the mundane moments. So it just feels interesting. Or you think to yourself like, well, why would somebody listen to my message? Like I can say what I feel about these topics, but you can go on Google. There's other people that tell the message better, and it's been told before, and it's nothing new. But I think people fail to realize is that sometimes, well, what it really is like nobody else has the exact same experiences in life that you as an individual have. Mm-hmm. And so how people relate to you, I might hear your message, but I don't relate to you. And then I might hear Mary Fran's message, but I relate to her, even if it's the same message. So mm-hmm. sometimes it's about where you hear the message from and who you identify with. And nobody else has those exact same experiences that bring you to take your unique individual take on things. So I think that's an important thing to help bring that out of somebody that says, hey, I feel this tug that I should be doing more. I feel like I have a calling. I feel like I'm not utilizing my gifts to the full potential. But I don't know how to do it. And having a coach or a team of people to kind of say like, hey, here's what I think is important about your story. Here's something that jumps out at me. Here's why I'm resonating with you, and kind of get that out of somebody to kind of find their voice and figure out who they are. And then, they might realize like, hey, I have had some pretty intense moments in my life. I just didn't really realize it because it wasn't, brought to my attention that it was a struggle to overcome. It's just kind of something I went through and dealt with.
Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of people, that's the way you see it. We see it and we go through it because we have to go through it. We have to do it. So, and then you kind of put it in a box afterwards. But here's the other part of that equation. You have to release the idea that everybody is going to relate to your story, because they're not, and that's okay. You have to be confident in the fact that if it means something to you, and if you're feeling that pull, that desire, that whatever, whether it's to tell your story, whether it's to get involved, it's going to mean something to someone. And you can't put a number on that. You can't quantify it or qualify it. You just have to be willing to put it out there into the world, and somebody is going to get something out of it. Last year, I did a speaking gig at a Chamber of Commerce. It was all adults that were there, and I was talking about identity and how we relate to all this stuff. And afterwards, it was all adults in the room, save for a few young people. And afterwards, this young woman came up to me, literally crying, saying, "I so needed to hear what you had to say." She wasn't necessarily the person that I was speaking to, but she heard something in there. So you can't assume that stuff is either going to land or not going to land. You just have to put it out there. And then again, not be married to the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I would add one more thing to that too, that in terms of that your listeners that might be hearing this and think, well, I haven't really had anything big. I would say, and we do this in the course that we're developing, and our webinar talks about this a little bit. Look at your experiences, and also look at your values and whatnot, and see what we kind of go through some stuff where you can uncover things. And the reason I say that is I have you don't know, look at the things you've been through, and you're just fine. Like for me, divorce, when I got divorced, well, the beginning of the divorce, nightmare, started 3 years ago, and I just could not reset. Whereas I got this tribe of women that were all going through it in our late 40s and early 50s. And one of my friends, who I didn't know very well before this, she had been through a divorce, and she is brilliant at the way she came through it. Her kids healthy, even though the ex-husband was a crazy ball, all this stuff. She's just brilliant at getting through it and giving advice. And I'm like, and she doesn't think that that's brilliance because it's so easy for her. Mm-hmm. And she didn't have this horrible pit that she was in. And I'm like, oh my God, I said to her, we have to figure out a way to bottle that and share that with people. Because so think about things like if you've been through a lot of breakups and you're fine, if you have had some issues and you don't have the bad self-talk that the rest of us have, how can you put that information into the world? How did you come through that and not look at it as devastating? Because the rest of us are probably going, I can't get back up after this. Those kinds of things are part of this resilience and brilliance. And Mary Fran always says, a lot of times you do things and you're successful. You have no idea that that was brilliant because you just did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's amazing. So we're kind of running a little bit out of time. You guys are definitely like going places. You can tell that there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of like the rocket ship's taking off. It's kind of like lifting. There's a lot of power, and it's just gonna like to the moon.
That's the nicest way anyone's described what happens between the two of us. So thank you for that, Nate.
I am half decaffeinated too. Could you imagine?
Yeah. One of my good friends, she's like a powerful force, like the two of you, and she likes to describe herself as a lovely train wreck, and it's just it's like
that's about right.
this is an amazing thing. So, one question for the both of you. Somebody wants to engage in world domination, total take over the world.
Hop on our flight.
So they can find us. We have our website. Oh, I'm pointing to it because like I'm thinking people can see it, but they can't. So it's brilliantlyresilient.net. We also have a Facebook community, Brilliantly Resilient. We have a YouTube channel that we are officially launching next week. We have a podcast that we are officially launching probably next week, I think. We're ubiquitous, and you can tell them all those other social media things because you do that. I don't do that stuff.
Wait, I want to see if that was actually Nate's question.
Oh, it was, right?
That was the question after the question.
Oh, okay.
This question was advice, but
sorry about that.
I love us so much. We even decide what your question should be.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be the answer. It could be like, you want to take over the world, like, get on the party train. Let's go.
Get on the train, baby. We'll help you. We like to help people. Come on, we'll take you. Let's go. We'll go together.
We can't all take over the world, so get on our message.
There's room for everybody.
Yeah.
There's room.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Nate, what was your question that I
don't remember anymore. I don't remember anymore.
I think it was going to be if you had advice for taking over the world. Just have Mary Fran be your driver because she'll be everywhere.
Listen, I had 3 kids, some of whom tortured the life out of me, and 6 grandkids, and I just go. I just go because I got to just keep the train moving.
I love
the Brilliant and Resilient movement is just like, just show up and we'll tell you what you're going to do and what to we'll figure it out for you.
You know what's funny about this is our key thing. One of the key things is you have to take action. See? You just got to get going.
You know what? That actually leads right to the point. It doesn't really matter where you start. Do something.
Mm-hmm.
Do something, like reach out to somebody that gets kind of maybe been in your orbit, that comes back into your head occasionally. This goes back to your point, Nate, about collaborating and networking and all that. Like, if you want to get started on that journey, find somebody that is somehow resonating with you, that comes back into your head, like periodically, like that person's really cool. And just shoot them an email and say, hey, I'd like to connect, or hook up with them on LinkedIn or whatever. And just start to build those contacts, because that's the most basic way to get started. And because other people see things in you often that you don't see in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a fantastic, I think that's what happened with Kristin and I. We had enough similarities, and then we saw things in each other, and our skill set, thank God, complements each other beautifully, because she does all the stuff I don't want to do, and I do the stuff she doesn't want to do.
That's the best, when you have somebody that can compliment you really well, and you're like, oh, I don't have to do all that stuff I hate because you love doing it. Like, we're going to go places. But back to your point of like getting started, like, and the idea of don't get married to the outcome is like, if you're like, oh, I want to do something, say it's create a podcast, and everything's got to be right. Because we're both in the same thing where we have like this very free flowing podcast. We don't edit. We don't try to kind of script it too much. But if you sit there and you go, I got to get everything right. I got to get my website right. I got to get my YouTube channel right. I got to get all my photos done. And I have to have the best logo. It's like your outcome of what you're trying to get perfect is probably not even going to occur. Like whatever you think you're going to do, like it's going to be different. There's no question about it. It's going to be different. So why even spend the time trying to get all that stuff right? Just get going with it. Let it evolve. It's going to take shape on its own. You might be just like you two on your own and meet somebody that you're going to partner up with and find out your synergies are so perfect together that you're going to create this awesome movement together with the tribe instead of on your own. So that's going to change. So just kind of like you said, just get going, get started, let it evolve. You're going to get better.
And it takes time. You mentioned earlier, it takes time. I think people need to understand that we were working on our own. I mean, I launched my nonprofit 9 years ago, 9 years of being in the trenches, then trying to do a speaking career, then get a book out. I mean, it's been a 9-year process of learning and getting better and building the relationships and serving the community that I serve as best as I could. So I put all of these skills now are coming to light. When Mary Fran and I have the opportunity, a door opens and then we blow through it. Like it wasn't just we met 2 years ago and just started and then boom, we're on the world tour. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and many, many tears and probably 1 million bottles of wine leading to this moment.
Yeah, that's so true. It's our experiences that take us to the point where we're at. They don't happen overnight, but if we put ourselves in positions where positive outcomes are more likely to occur, then like the world or the universe has a way of kind of bringing the right people into our lives and shaping it and taking us places. So very cool. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with this interview. First time doing 2 people. It's definitely a little different. Hope you guys had fun too. I appreciate you coming on the show and reaching out, and hopefully we can connect more again. I think there's a lot to talk about. So
yeah, good stuff. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Nate.
And all the links and all that stuff, they'll be in the show notes. So if anybody's listening and they want to connect with you, they'll be able to. So awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nate.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.